Your contract ends today. You are fired, effective immediately with no severance pay. Pack your things and leave right away. Those words rang out in the dry air like a sharp knife. It was a sudden firing from my manager, James. It felt just like a nightmare. I worked in the IT department, and I was definitely not someone who stood out. I never wanted anyone's praise. But every time I saw the accounting team working overtime late into the night, my chest tightened. I cannot let things stay like this. That was the thought that led me to start updating the system. After we introduced the new system, the overtime hours decreased, and there was less work on weekends. Not many people said thank you, but seeing fewer tired faces made me happier than anything else. And now, I was about to be dismissed as incompetent with just one word. But I have not done anything wrong. My hands were trembling. I could feel my eyes start to burn. But I could not let anyone see my tears. Enough. The sound of James slamming his fist on the table echoed in the conference room. I am sick of hearing your nonsense. Pack your things and get out. Is this really happening? It felt as though I was caught in a bad dream. I returned to my desk and began packing my things into a cardboard box. On my monitor was the program I had worked so hard on up until yesterday, hoping to help everyone. When I left the company holding my cardboard box, the cold wind slapped my cheek. But that was when something completely unexpected happened. I would like to hire you for a yearly salary of $300,000. I believe this is fate that you and I met today. The daughter of a client company's president grabbed my arm and told me this. There was not a hint of hesitation in her eyes. This encounter would change my life forever. And eventually, James' wrongdoings, the man who fired me, would be exposed. Just past midnight in the office, I was once again checking the lines of numbers on my computer screen. All right, this is perfect. I spoke the words out loud, but no one was there to hear them. At this late hour, I was sure I was the only one in the office. My name is Ryan. I work in the IT department of Moving Stories Agent, a staffing and recruitment agency, where I am in charge of the accounting system. The accounting system overhaul project started a year ago. It was a dull job that no one paid any attention to. But every time I saw the accounting team pulling all-nighters at the end of the month, I kept wondering if there was not something I could do. Budgets were managed in Excel. Each department used a different format. Mistakes in copying and adding up numbers happened all the time, and every time, the accounting team was left holding their heads in frustration. I watched as the progress bar on the screen changed from 99% to 100% and let out a deep sigh. Now, the accounting team would not need to stay up all night anymore. The monthly closing could be finished with just a push of a button. A good system is one that works so smoothly people barely even notice it is there. I guess it's time to go home. I put on my jacket and was heading for the elevator when I saw a shadow. Uh, I saw someone walking down the hallway where the president's office was located. That person was carrying something in their arms. Under the fluorescent lights, I realized it was an old laptop. Moving around stealthily and glancing nervously at their surroundings, they looked clearly suspicious. Growing more concerned, I quietly watched as the person entered the IT department floor, then left soon after. I went back to the IT department floor. I found a desk drawer slightly open and looked inside. The same laptop from earlier was in there. I should record the IP address. On instinct, I took out my phone and took a picture of the sticker on the back of the laptop. After putting my phone back in my pocket, I headed home. The next morning, as I walked past the accounting floor, I overheard employees who had already started working. Huh? That was finished really fast today. I wonder why. It felt easier than usual. There were no mistakes either. I smiled quietly to myself. I was careful not to let anyone notice. No one had realized the system had been updated. But that was fine. That is exactly how a system should be. Later, the report that accounting's overtime hours had been drastically reduced would be sent to the administration office. That was the only visible result of my efforts. While I was feeling satisfied that the system was running smoothly, someone spoke behind me. Ryan, about this first quarter budget management sheet. I turned to see James approaching my desk. James had been transferred from the corporate planning department during the April personnel changes. I remembered reading the materials sent from Human Resources, which listed his impressive background, including an MBA and time spent studying at Harvard. His expensive-looking leather shoes echoed loudly across the floor. Yes, this was output from the system. This is hard to use. Excel is much easier. James said this with a derisive snort. But with this system, you can check the budget status in real time. Do not overthink things. The way we have always done it is fine. James waved his hand, cutting off my explanation. There was clear contempt in that gesture. I know your type. You are good at pretending to work. You spend your time on tedious tasks, but you do not bring any real value to the company. As long as you get your paycheck each month, staring at your computer screen, that is good enough for you, right? I simply stared back at James in silence. By the way, Ryan, you are free after work today, aren't you? Huh? Yes, I suppose so. Good. That's settled then. Come to a mixer with me. A mixer? We need to make up the numbers. We are one person short, and you have to come. It is with the secretarial department from Cherry Blossom Cosmetics. Think of it as part of business. Cherry Blossom Cosmetics. It was a major cosmetics manufacturer. Any young woman would know them. They are known for making custom-made cosmetics, and their careful work has an excellent reputation by word of mouth. Since it was for work, I agreed to go to the mixer. James looked pleased, brushed off the sleeve of his expensive suit, and walked away. James' footsteps echoed unusually loud. It was almost as if he wanted to emphasize how insignificant I was. I let out a small sigh, making sure James could not hear me. At 7 p.m., the mixer was held in a private room at a bar near the headquarters of Cherry Blossom Cosmetics. There were 4 women. All of them had a refined and glamorous aura. But among them, there was one girl who seemed a bit reserved. She wore black-rimmed glasses and a simple violet dress. Compared to the other women, she hardly stood out at all. Ryan, sit over there. There is someone just right for you, James said with a mean-spirited grin, pointing to the seat next to the reserved girl. I noticed her stiffen a little. Then James, raising his voice on purpose so the women from the secretarial department could hear, said, "This guy is practically invisible at our company. He works away in a corner of the IT department, always glued to his computer. He is what you would call socially awkward. So I basically forced him to come tonight to make up the numbers." I quietly took my seat, ignoring the mocking look James gave me. "Excuse me, my name is Ryan. I work in the IT department at Moving Stories Agent, in charge of the accounting system. My name is Charlotte." Her voice was so faint that it was almost a whisper. Yet, for some reason, it lingered in my ear. "Oh, look at that. Mr. Quiet and Miss Quiet are sitting together. It almost looks like a picture," James said in a teasing tone. The other male employees chuckled along with him. James kept piling it on. "Ryan, is this your first time at a mixer? Come on, you should talk to her. This is part of your job. But I guess it might be a bit much for someone who was just invited to fill a seat." James brushed the sleeve of his expensive-looking suit and raised his voice even more. Then he turned toward the glamorous women, and his expression suddenly brightened. Hey, it is no fun if things are so stiff and formal, right? Let's enjoy ourselves over here. James beamed, lifting his cocktail glass. Usually I am on the front lines of corporate strategy, but sometimes I like to spend time with lovely ladies like you. Oh, by the way, I recommend this drink. Would you like to try it? The women in flashy outfits raised their voices to match James' light banter. I felt my grip on the glass tighten, but making sure no one noticed, I started talking in a natural tone. I know about Cherry Blossom Cosmetics' new system. I have actually studied your company's system quite a bit. Managing custom-made cosmetics through a system is a unique challenge, isn't it? Since they were a client, it was only natural to know these things. But Charlotte looked up at me in surprise. Her eyes seemed to sparkle just a bit more. That's right. With everyone's individual skin data and the matching prescriptions, there is a massive number of combinations. Charlotte's voice grew a little stronger. If you do not review the database design, the processing will get slower, right? Yes, with our current system, every time we get new customers, the response time. Charlotte stopped mid-sentence and covered her mouth. She must have realized she had started to mention an internal issue. But to me, that gesture seemed strangely endearing. Oh, I am sorry. I just. No problem at all. Actually, I have faced similar challenges with the accounting system. Improving the processing speed for large amounts of data really is painstaking work, isn't it? But it is very important work, Charlotte said quietly, nodding. Looking at her profile, I felt a certain dignified beauty. You are in the secretarial department, right, Charlotte? I am surprised you know so much about systems. Oh well, I have been studying so I can support any department. That's amazing. You really are dedicated to your work. As I smiled broadly and replied, Charlotte blushed and looked down. Before I realized it, the women from the secretarial department, who had been talking with James and the others just moments before, were now watching our conversation with warm smiles. Wow, Ryan, you seem like a different person when you start talking about systems. Charlotte, too, for that matter. The women from the secretarial department looked at us with kind eyes. Charlotte's cheeks grew even redder at their words. It was true that she looked far more animated than I would have imagined from my first impression of her. Charlotte, maybe you should exchange contact information with Ryan. Uh, but Charlotte looked uncertain. Come on, it's rare to find someone you can talk with so easily. The voices of encouragement kept coming. Well, if you say so. I pulled out my phone with a natural smile. And the first thing I did was exchange contact information with Charlotte. Charlotte stared intently at her phone screen. The women from the secretarial department watched over her as if they were happy for her as much as for themselves. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of my own face reflected on my screen. I looked far happier than usual. Can I exchange contact information with you too, Ryan? We would love to as well. Let's make a group chat. If you don't mind me being in it. The invitations kept coming. Oh, would you like to exchange with me too? James pulled out his expensive-looking phone, trying to be casual. I'm thinking of renting out a super popular restaurant next week for a party. I know even better places than this. Oh, it's not the kind of casual spot you'd go to, Ryan, and it's Michelin 3-star. But for such lovely ladies as yourselves, maybe I could extend an invitation. James tried to sound light and charming, but, oh, my phone's full today. Sorry, I don't exchange contacts with clients. I'm sorry, I don't really connect with new people. The women all politely turned him down. What? Really? That's cold. I actually know some really great places. Look, see this app? This is an exclusive restaurant that only VIPs can reserve, and I'm a regular there. James tried hard to show the women the screen of his phone, but no one showed the slightest interest. Oh, maybe it's too fancy and that's off-putting? Well, I'm fine with something more casual too, like a bar or noodle restaurant, whatever Ryan goes to. His voice grew smaller and smaller. Oh, Ryan, this noodle restaurant is delicious. Let's all go together sometime. I want to go too. Let's go as a group. Charlotte, you're coming too, right? Yes. As the women's excitement rose, James' expression clouded. Oh, noodle restaurant. Well, I'm more used to French food these days. Even at Harvard, I had course dinners almost every week. James tugged at his high-end designer tie, his hand trembling slightly. Well, I'm busy anyway. Those kinds of ordinary places. I actually have a meeting at a members-only bar after this. So, I'll be going now. Before I realized it, James had disappeared. The next morning at the office, just as I sat down to start working, my phone vibrated softly. A notification popped up on my messaging app. It was from the group chat I had created yesterday with the women from the secretarial department at Cherry Blossom Cosmetics after we exchanged contact information. Ryan, would you like to go out for a meal with all of us sometime? As I stared at the screen, more messages kept coming in. Charlotte will come too. We're looking forward to it. I could not help but feel a smile forming on my lips. The good feeling from yesterday's conversation still lingered. Ryan, about these documents. James' voice from behind me suddenly stopped short. It seemed his eyes had landed on my phone screen. Well, they are the secretarial team at Cherry Blossom Cosmetics, right? Those are the girls from last night's mixer, aren't they? You sure got friendly with them fast. James muttered in a low voice. There was a clear note of irritation in his tone. I quietly slipped my phone back into my pocket. To think the guy I invited just to make up the numbers would get invited out to dinner. Well, that's just how the secretarial team is. When they see a guy who doesn't stand out, they feel sorry for him and can't leave him alone. That plain girl probably felt like you were one of her own. She's just being polite, that's all. James gave a sarcastic smile. Well, whatever. Don't let it go to your head. Get back to work. You're not useful for anything as it is. With that, James turned on his heel and walked away. A few days later, one afternoon, Ryan, can you come with me for a moment? Called by James, I made my way to the meeting room. There, the head of human resources, Michael, was also waiting. A single document set on the table. Can you explain this? James pointed to the access log for the customer database. It showed evidence that my ID had been used to illegally access employee data from Cherry Blossom Cosmetics. What is this? Can you explain this? Michael looked at the log with a stern expression. That's not right. It's true that I accessed Cherry Blossom Cosmetics' data for reference as part of our system integration, but as for employee data, especially unauthorized access, I never. That's not all, James said, pulling out another document. All of these suspicious accesses happened the day before the mixer, and they're all focused on employee data from the secretarial department. This is clear evidence that you collected personal information beforehand to get close to the women from our client company. Deep lines formed on Michael's forehead. This really is malicious. Michael, that's absolutely not true. I have no reason to do something like that. No more excuses. Please, just investigate thoroughly. Check if it was really me who accessed these logs from the system. And check my work records. If I really did it, there shouldn't be any other work records at that time. If you look into everything, you'll see. At my desperate plea, Michael hesitated for a moment, seeming deep in thought. But, I'm sorry, but with this much evidence, Michael, I would never leave such an obvious trail. And there's no reason for me to do something like this. Enough. James cut me off. Excuses are useless. The facts are the facts. This evidence says everything. Michael let out a heavy sigh. All right, we'll proceed with this. Wait, please. This is a misunderstanding. The decision has already been made. Your contract is terminated as of today, effective immediately with no severance pay. Pack your things and leave. Honestly, I'm glad to be rid of someone so useless. James cut me off with a triumphant expression. Oh, and I've already contacted Cherry Blossom Cosmetics and told them all about your malicious behavior. Looks like you won't be seeing those women again, will you? Serves you right. Seeing the twisted satisfaction on James' face at that moment, I realized the truth. No way. You're doing all this just because you held a grudge over that mixer? James' face twisted with ugly resentment. You humiliated me. You were just supposed to make up the numbers, just a plain IT guy. And yet, you had such a good time with the women from the secretarial team. So you wanted to drive me out of the company? Just for that reason? Sooner or later, this company was always out of your league. Now that you know, just get out. And do not show your face around here again. It felt as if everything went dark before my eyes. That evening, as I left the company carrying a cardboard box, the cold spring wind slapped my cheek. On my way home, I suddenly remembered that I had made plans to have dinner with Charlotte and the others today. But James had said he had already told them about me. Should I send a cancellation message? Still, a promise is a promise. Dragging my feet, I headed to the bar where we were supposed to meet. I left my box in a locker and stood in front of the bar. My stomach twisted with nerves. Surely, no one would show up. Hey, Ryan. When I turned around, the women from the secretarial department at Cherry Blossom Cosmetics were waving at me. One of them immediately caught my eye. There stood a woman with strikingly sleek black hair. Her pale purple dress went perfectly with her understated makeup. Charlotte. I could not help but say her name aloud. Charlotte smiled, looking a little shy. I tried putting on some makeup today. I also switched from glasses to contact lenses. She looked like a completely different person from the mixer the other day. No, that was not it. The beauty I had sensed in her before was simply shining even more now. You looked lovely then, but you look wonderful now, too. I gave her my honest impression. Really? I'm glad. A faint blush colored Charlotte's cheeks. Come on, let's go in. One of the secretarial team called out warmly. There was the same warmth in her voice as always. It was as if she knew nothing about what had happened today. We were shown to a private room, and the usual pleasant conversation began. But about 30 minutes later, Charlotte looked down and spoke quietly. Ryan, I heard you left your company today. I froze for a moment. So they had already heard. I looked up and met the eyes of everyone from the secretarial team. Then, bracing myself, I spoke. I suppose you've heard from James that I illegally accessed your company's data. But that isn't true. I never once tried to get your information without permission. However, it's true there was an unauthorized access to your system from my company. I'm truly sorry. I bugged deeply. I fully expected them to tell me to leave. That was what I braced myself for. Ryan, please raise your head. I have a request. Would you come work for our company? Surprised by her words, I looked up. But isn't it already known at your company that I'm the villain who accessed your data? Know what James told me has only been shared with a few people at my discretion. With just your say-so. Who are you, really? Charlotte took a small, deep breath. The women from the secretarial team watched her warmly. The truth is, I'm the next president of Cherry Blossom Cosmetics. Wait, that means. Yes, the president of Cherry Blossom Cosmetics is my father. Charlotte's expression shifted to a dignified smile. I'm not comfortable at mixers and usually refuse to go. I don't like being looked at as the future president, but everyone worries about me, since I never have any romance in my life. They always say I shouldn't focus only on work, that I should at least talk to people my own age. She glanced over at the secretarial team. They looked at her with the warmth of someone watching over a younger sister. To be honest, I was really nervous that day. That's why I wore my thickest glasses and tried to look as plain as possible, so I wouldn't stand out. But you, Ryan, still spoke to me so kindly. The way you looked when we talked about systems, your earnest attitude, and your dedication to help the accounting department, all of that made me feel so much lighter, and before I knew it, I was talking to you more than anyone else. That's never happened to me before. Her last words were little more than a whisper. Yet each and every one soaked into my heart, like a gentle spring breeze. Just then, Charlotte took my arm. My heart pounded at how close she was. There's no way I believe you would steal our information, Ryan. That's why, when you lost your job, I wanted to offer you one with us. Charlotte pulled an envelope from her bag. I saw her hand was trembling slightly. Inside was an employment contract. I caught my breath when I saw the salary written there. Charlotte, this salary. Yes, we'd like to hire you for a yearly salary of $300,000. Is that not enough? No, not at all. It's more than I deserve. No. Charlotte cut me off. Her eyes looked as if they held stars from the night sky. Ryan, I believe this is fate. Fate? Yes, that we met at that mixer. I want to make Cherry Blossom Cosmetics an even better company. Not just a place that brings out women's beauty, but a place where everyone can shine as themselves. I want to dream that dream with you. I want someone by my side who faces work with sincerity and gives everything for others. That's why I want you right next to me, so we can make our dreams come true together. A blush spread across Charlotte's cheeks. I was so taken aback by this sudden turn that I couldn't find words. But I wanted to give everything to help realize the future she imagined. I wanted to dream the same dream by her side. That wish was taking clear shape in my heart. Yes, I'd be honored to accept. Charlotte's face lit up at my awkward reply. A small round of applause broke out around us. On a spring evening, outside the window, cherry blossoms quietly bloomed as if celebrating us. A few days later, the system development department at Cherry Blossom Cosmetics became my new workplace. This is our current reservation management system. Megan, a senior in the systems department, showed me the screen. Several Excel sheets were open. We decide the prescription for each customer based on their skin data, enter counseling reservations, then send manufacturing instructions from there. Excuse me, but how long does this take every day? Well, just entering the reservations takes about 3 hours, Megan said, looking exhausted. The inconvenience was just like when the accounting team struggled at my old company. This I can do something about. 1 week later, I gathered my senior colleagues in the system development department and showed them the program I had built. This is a prototype of our new reservation system. Once you input the customer's data, it will automatically calculate the best formula and required counseling time. You can also check availability in real time. It can link with the chat app as well, so customers can confirm reservation changes directly from the app and make changes with just one tap. Amazing. With this, we won't have to deal with those endless phone calls anymore. Let's implement it right away. Megan's eyes widened as she stared at the screen. 2 weeks after my reservation system was introduced, I was passing by the front desk when the receptionist called out to me. Ryan, since we started using the system you built, it only takes us 30 minutes to finish entering reservations. Customers are saying it's much easier to make appointments, too. The receptionist gave me the happy report. I also received more positive feedback, like from the planning department. It's revolutionary that we can now compile the data with just one click. Ryan, I heard Charlotte's voice from behind me. When I turned around, I saw her smiling gently. In less than a month since joining the company, you've already brought about such a big change. That's incredible. No, there's still much more to do. Next, I want to connect the inventory and ordering systems so we can set up an automated ordering process that adapts to seasonal changes. By analyzing customer skin data trends, we can forecast which ingredients will be needed each season. That way, we'll reduce waste and be ready for sudden demand. Charlotte gave a little laugh. When you're thinking about how to help people, your eyes really light up, Ryan. As the next president, I need to build a company where people like you can thrive. Charlotte straightened her back. There was a strong sense of determination in her eyes. I found myself nodding unconsciously. Gentle spring sunlight streamed in through the window. For business, I visited Moving Stories Agents' headquarters for the first time in a while. A nostalgic atmosphere wrapped around me. Charlotte stood at my side. In a deep navy suit with perfect makeup, she looked like someone who had just stepped out of a fashion magazine. I could tell all the employees of Moving Stories Agent were captivated by her. Well, if it isn't Ryan. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice. Turning around, I saw James standing there. James wore a spiteful grin. To think the guy who got fired is back here, running an errand for your new company? I guess even someone as useless as you could handle delivering documents. Not that I know what kind of small-time company you joined. At that moment, James' eyes locked onto Charlotte standing next to me. Who's the beautiful woman? James' words made me tilt my head a bit. James, you've met her before, right? Charlotte from the mixer the other day. No way. That plain girl? When James exclaimed, Charlotte smiled gracefully and gave a polite bow. It's been a while, James. My name is Charlotte from Cherry Blossom Cosmetics. Charlotte handed her business card to James. He stared at it as if trying to burn a hole through it. No way. Are you the daughter of Mr. Reed, the president of Cherry Blossom Cosmetics? Or are you her sister? James' voice was shaking. All the confidence he had before was completely gone. Charlotte blinked in surprise. You know my sister? Now that you mention it, your name? James. Oh. Charlotte's expression darkened. James, you're my sister's boyfriend. She trailed off, a frown forming between her brows. Surprised by her words, I looked at James without thinking. Huh? James, you had a girlfriend, and yet you set up that mixer? Humph! James gave a derisive snort. It was hard to read any emotion from his expression. I dumped Heather ages ago. She was just full of herself because she's the president's daughter. A sickly girl like that isn't worthy to stand next to me. Charlotte's face turned pale right before my eyes. Her slender fingers clenched her bag tightly. Seeing her like that, anger rushed to my head, and I glared at James. James! I have things to do. I don't have time to waste on you two. With that, James spat out his words and quickly left. The sound of his leather shoes echoed loudly. A heavy silence fell over us. Charlotte, just as I tried to say something, a single tear slipped from her long lashes. Without a word, I put my arm around Charlotte's shoulders and led her to the rooftop garden of the building. The early summer wind gently stirred Charlotte's black hair. In the distance, the high-rise buildings glittered in the bright daylight. After a long silence, Charlotte quietly began to speak. My sister, Heather, fell ill a year ago. Until then, she was expected to be the next president, not me. She was truly loved by everyone, kind and intelligent, and after she started dating James, she seemed more full of life than ever. Her words carried a faint tremor, as if she was suppressing the emotions welling up inside. Charlotte leaned on the railing, gazing off into the distance as she continued. But one day, she suddenly collapsed. When I heard that she had a difficult-to-treat illness, I was so scared. She had always been perfect, so much more dependable than me. A faint scent of flowers drifted by on the wind. And yet James, the day after her diagnosis, he broke up with her. Whenever my sister talked about him, she looked so happy. When she headed out for dates on her days off, her smile was as innocent as a young girl's. And then, suddenly, she lost everything. I couldn't bear to watch anymore. Charlotte's voice faltered. I waited in silence. I was jealous, you know. My sister, being with someone she loved and looking so happy. I'm afraid of falling in love myself. Charlotte's fingers, gripping the railing, turned white. Remember when I told you why I dressed so plainly? I didn't want to be seen as the president's daughter. But there's another reason too. My features are rather striking, don't you think? So, people tend to assume I'm out playing around with men. If I so much as talk to a man, next day there are rumors, those two are dating, or the president's daughter likes that guy. Charlotte looked up at the sky. The blue was dazzlingly clear. There was someone I liked once, but he turned me down. He said, I can't date someone who's such a flirt. And right after that, everyone knew I'd been rejected. Then, people tried to get close to me, pretending to comfort me. Charlotte let out a deep sigh. I guess that's why I became afraid to fall in love. I worry I'll get hurt again. So I did my makeup in a way that wouldn't stand out, wore glasses to make myself look plain, and let everyone see me as a quiet girl. Watching my sister become so down after her breakup just made those feelings stronger. I told myself I would never fall in love. White clouds drifted overhead. Charlotte's profile looked more fragile than ever. Suddenly, she turned to face me. A single tear fell from her eye. But then, I met you. Even though I didn't want to get hurt, even though I didn't want to fall in love, I just can't stop how I feel about you. I want you by my side. I want to know more about you. I want you to know more about me. I want you to love me. Unable to help myself, I pulled Charlotte into a hug as tears streamed down her cheeks. Charlotte, I love you too. I promise I'll never hurt you. So it's okay to love me. I heard Charlotte gasp softly right by my ear. Then she wrapped her arms around my back, as if holding on for dear life, pressed her face to my chest, and began to cry her heart out. Charlotte, remember what you said? That it was fate that we met? I believe that too. Through her sobs, Charlotte nodded again and again. I gently stroked her back. The white light of the midday sun softly wrapped us both. Then it all happened one day in the middle of summer. Emergency. There's been an unauthorized access to the system. Kevin, a senior member of the systems department, burst into the development room. There was a look of tension on his face. When I focused on the computer screen, abnormal access logs kept appearing one after another. All of our servers are under attack. The customer database, prescription data, and reservation system. Everything. Put it up on the screen. I gave instructions immediately. The crisis was visualized on a huge monitor. This is The scene spread out before us that was hard to believe. Tens of thousands of customer records were being downloaded by someone. And that wasn't all. Another senior staff member shouted, "The manufacturing system has been breached as well. If this keeps up, every customer's skin data and custom prescription will be leaked. The allergy information too, and if the prescriptions are misused, someone could start making copycat products. But more than anything, it will destroy the trust we've built with our customers over the years." His voice was shaking. The core of Cherry Blossom Cosmetics was under threat, and the mood in the development room froze over. "Shut down all systems immediately. Cut all external connections." As I gave instructions, I quickly analyzed the situation. On the screen, I saw traces of code I recognized. I tried to recall where I'd seen it before, and just then, Charlotte came running into the development room. She usually looked calm, but now her face was clearly unsettled. "Ryan, something terrible has happened. The factory system is malfunctioning, and every prescription has been rewritten. If we don't stop it, the wrong ingredients will be used to make our products." "What's the extent of the damage?" "Over 100 prescriptions have already been altered, and if it continues, it could seriously affect our customers' skin." Charlotte's voice trembled. The custom order system, the lifeblood of Cherry Blossom Cosmetics, was in crisis. This isn't just a cyberattack. Someone is deliberately trying to destroy Cherry Blossom Cosmetics. They're attacking multiple systems at once and even rewriting prescription data in the manufacturing system. This was done by someone who knows our internal setup. I said it with confidence. My hands moved rapidly over the keyboard as I issued commands. "First, roll back the backup data to what it was 48 hours ago and identify which prescriptions were tampered with. Shut down the production line immediately." The development team responded quickly. "Next, trace the source IP address." This access pattern, complex log data appeared on the screen. I noticed a certain pattern. This is something I saw in the internal system at Moving Stories Agent. But something is different. "What do you mean?" Charlotte asked, her expression tense. To put it simply, someone is mimicking the Moving Stories Agent system. But it's not a perfect copy. It's as if. As if? As if someone who used to know the system at Moving Stories Agent is recreating it from memory. My fingers never stopped moving over the keyboard. "We're going to launch a counterattack, but do not damage their system. We'll protect our data and follow their tracks." My fingers flew quickly over the keys. I found it. The server launching the attack is running an old version of the accounting system, the version I built at Moving Stories Agent before the update. So that means, yeah, the culprit knows the old system at Moving Stories Agent, and they also know the internal structure of Cherry Blossom Cosmetics. More and more information appeared on the screen. It was like following the culprit's footprints, which were clear, undeniable evidence. This is it. It's over. I hit the final key. Then, I looked around at the employees. We've completely blocked the attack and restored all the tampered data. We also secured the evidence. A sigh of relief escaped around the meeting room. And we have also identified the culprit. The user of this IP address is James from Moving Stories Agent. A gasp ran through the room. Charlotte's face turned pale. Her tightly pressed lips and clenched fists trembled. Charlotte pulled out her phone and made a call. "Hello, Dad? Please contact Moving Stories Agent right away and have them bring James here. He's the one behind all this." After Charlotte hung up, the room fell silent as if water had been poured over it. Escorted by security guards, James was brought into the development room. His usually neat appearance was a mess, and his hair was disheveled. "Damn it. Let go of me." James tried to shake off the guard's grip, but they didn't budge. "You're the one who launched the cyber attack against us, aren't you, James?" When I said this quietly, James froze for a moment. "Humph. What proof do you have?" "We have all the records, James. Here is the IP address tracing report. The attack was carried out using the old moving stories agent system. It came from a company laptop you secretly kept." I displayed a timeline of the access logs on the screen. James' eyes widened in surprise. "So you knew, didn't you? You saw me taking that old laptop from the president's office." "Yes. I saw you one night when I was working late. I noticed you sneaking into the president's office and taking out an old laptop. I thought it was suspicious, so I took a photo of the laptop's IP address. And as for the internal information on Cherry Blossom Cosmetics, you got that from Charlotte's sister, Heather, didn't you?" The blood drained from James' face. James opened his mouth, but no words came out, or he simply chose not to speak. His bloodshot eyes glared at me. "The day I took out the laptop, I found out you were working late. I realized you must have seen me, so I framed you and got you fired. And now here you are, ruining my plans. I was so close. I was so close to bringing down Cherry Blossom Cosmetics." I took a step toward the furious James. "Why, James? Why did you go this far?" At my question, James twisted his lips into a mocking smile. But behind that expression, I caught a glimpse of deep sadness. Heather. Heather's life was ruined by this company. She worked day and night, barely taking any breaks. And just because she was the president's daughter, everyone put all this pressure on her, always telling her to get results and meet expectations. That pressure crushed her, and she ended up getting so sick. James's voice shook. It was a voice filled with hatred, but also a deep sadness. Heather stayed late every night, working weekends as if it were normal. "It's an important time," she'd say. Even when I told her not to push herself, she'd just smile and say, "It's okay, just a little longer." But she kept getting thinner. In the end, she was barely eating but still working so hard. Tears streamed down James' face. So I decided I was going to destroy this company. The company that stole everything from Heather, I was going to crush it. I'd tamper with the formulas for the custom cosmetics, destroy its reputation, leak customer data, and deal a fatal blow. I was going to make them pay for ruining Heather's life. James clenched his fists tightly. That's why I broke up with Heather. I decided to devote everything to revenge. If I stayed by her side, and if I kept seeing her gentle smile, I knew I'd lose my resolve. I knew I'd give up on my revenge. So I had to cut her off coldly and pour all my time into preparing my revenge. Charlotte's eyes widened in realization. "Wait, so that mixer." "That's right. I set it up to dig for information on Cherry Blossom Cosmetics. If I got close to the employees, I could get insider information. And I only invited Ryan as a filler, so I could frame him for legal access to your data." James' words sank heavily into the cold air of the development room. "That's enough, James." At that moment, a quiet voice filled the room. When we turned, we saw a woman in a wheelchair, bearing a strong resemblance to Charlotte. Pushing the wheelchair was the president of Cherry Blossom Cosmetics, Charlotte's father, Mr. Reed. "Heather." James's voice trembled. All of his earlier bluster had vanished. Looking at the woman in the wheelchair, I realized this must be Charlotte's older sister. Although the sisters looked alike, there was a certain fragile beauty about her. Her face, as she sat in her wheelchair, was strangely peaceful. My father once told me if I could achieve results, I could marry James. So I worked hard. I stayed late every night and gave up my days off. I took on new product development and overseas projects all by myself. But I thought that as long as I could be with James, I could endure any hardship. I could marry James. Just believing that made any amount of work bearable. That was what my love was. Heather's voice was quiet, but every word was deeply marked by memories of the past. James stared at Heather in shock. No, you did all that for me? But I see now that it was a mistake. There were more important things than results. Heather wheeled herself forward a little. I always wanted you to smile, James. Like back then, when you would complain about work, but your eyes still sparkled. But in the end, I took that smile from you too. Heather, I was. James, even if you get revenge like this, none of us, nor anyone else, will be happy. It's over now. Let's end it, please. All I ever wanted was to see you smile. Big tears rolled down James' cheeks. At that moment, Mr. Reed, who had been quietly watching near the entrance, approached us. He was no longer the imposing figure of a company president, but a father with his head bowed deeply. James, I am truly sorry. As both a father and a president, I made a terrible mistake. I never realized my careless words pushed Heather to that point. To risk my precious daughter's happiness for the sake of results. What a fool I was. Mr. Reed pressed his lips together tightly. Then he spoke again. It may be too late now, but would you stay by Heather's side again? She needs you. She still loves you just as much as ever. That's enough. I'm not the next president anymore. There's no reason for James to stay with me. You're wrong. James gently cut Heather off. He walked over, knelt before her wheelchair, and looked into her eyes. I never cared about titles or company status. What I wanted was to see you smile, even when you were tired from work. I cherished those ordinary moments like eating cake together on our days off and sharing complaints about work. Your smile in those everyday moments was everything to me. You never needed to be the company president. I just want you to be there by my side, smiling again. James's voice trembled. Tears streamed down Heather's cheeks. James, really? Even someone as sick as me? Yes. From now on, I'll protect you. I won't let you overdo it. When you need rest, we'll rest. When things get hard, just say so. We'll take it one step at a time together. I want to walk through life by your side. Heather, will you give me another chance to make you happy? James! James gently took Heather's hand. Even as she cried, Heather's face lit up. Sunlight pouring into the office warmly embraced the two of them. A few days later, a board meeting was held at Moving Stories Agent. James was dismissed for gross misconduct, including unauthorized system access, data tampering, and grave acts of betrayal against the company. A week later, Charlotte and I visited their apartment. Bathed in gentle sunlight from the window, James was gently brushing Heather's hair. It was a scene so tender, I could hardly believe this was the same man who once seemed so domineering. Excuse us. Oh, Charlotte, Ryan. Heather looked up with a happy smile. Charlotte took Heather's hand. How are you feeling today? I'm a little better. James has been taking care of me every day. I'm glad. You have rehab this afternoon, right? I'd like to go with you. Heather nodded softly. James began carefully preparing the wheelchair. Ryan. Suddenly, James turned to me. I truly am sorry for what I did, framing you and getting you fired. I let my anger and thirst for revenge turn you, a good person, into my scapegoat. And yet, you still did things that helped us in the end. I'll never be able to make up for it. It's all right, James. Because of you, I was able to meet Charlotte. Now, I'm grateful. I smiled naturally as I said it. It's a strange thing. All the anger and frustration from back then have completely disappeared. But are you sure about this? Leaving your job and everything else behind? Yes, I have actually been saving up for a long time for the day I could be with Heather. From now on, I'm going to devote myself to caring for her. I made her work too hard before. Now, it's my turn to work for her. Don't worry. I started investing bit by bit since my MBA days. We won't have any trouble making ends meet for a while. As he spoke, James gently draped a shawl over Heather's shoulders. The way he did it was as gentle as if he were handling a treasure. A blush appeared on Heather's cheeks. They really do look happy, Charlotte whispered beside me. I nodded quietly. Any hostility or resentment from the past seemed to melt away in the warmth of this sunlit room. Half a year went by. Ryan, here's last month's financial report. I looked through the documents Charlotte brought me. I looked through the materials. Ever since we'd overhauled the system, the numbers had steadily improved. First, we tackled the efficiency of the manufacturing process. We connected skin data with AI-powered demand forecasting to optimize inventory. There was no more unnecessary purchasing, and costs were cut in half. Next, we moved customer management to the cloud. Sharing counseling data across all stores cut wait times by 2/3. Customer satisfaction was at an all-time high. All the numbers are climbing. Profits are more than double what they were last year. It's all thanks to the improvements you made to our systems. Ryan, you're really amazing. Charlotte's voice was filled with pride. No, it's thanks to everyone's teamwork. And because you, as the next president, got directly involved with the staff, they were willing to embrace change so positively. I turned to look at Charlotte. Her cheeks colored slightly. I went back to reading through the reports. There was an upward trending graph. It wasn't just a line of numbers going up, and it was the result of everyone's hard work. Oh, what's this? I noticed James' name on a document from the corporate planning office. Yes, James started with us last week. My father decided it. He said, letting that much management talent go to waste would be a loss to society. So James is starting over as a regular employee. Charlotte's voice was cheerful. How about Heather's care? He only works mornings, so he can be with her for rehab in the afternoons. That was the condition. I looked over his proposal. It was sharply analyzed, with realistic numbers. It was as expected from someone with an MBA. With James' management skills in your systems, Ryan, I'm sure the company will become even better. Charlotte gave a gentle smile. Hey, Ryan, we've really changed a lot since that mixer, haven't we? Yeah, we have. Warm memories from that day spread through my chest. Charlotte stood by the window, narrowing her eyes against the winter sunlight. Back then, I was always looking down, dressed plainly, scared of being seen as the daughter of the president. But you were different, Ryan. You looked me in the eye. The way you looked when we talked about systems made my heart race. Charlotte turned around to face me. You know, I decided that day that if I ever saw you again, I'd be honest. No more hiding. No more pretending. I want to face you just as I am, because you see me as myself, not as the daughter of the president, but just as Charlotte. Her earnest gaze made me speak before I knew it. I was captivated by the way you looked when you talked too. There was such a calm strength and kindness. Charlotte smiled, her eyes shining beautifully. Can I stay by your side from now on? Yes, always. I want to cherish your dreams, your strength, and your kindness, all of it. So please let me protect all of that. I answered without hesitation. Outside, the snow began to fall quietly. Charlotte's cheeks gradually turned red. In the light coming through the window, her profile looked especially beautiful. I took a step closer to Charlotte. Naturally, our faces drew closer together. I could see her long eyelashes trembling slightly. Ryan. Her whisper was as gentle as snow, softly accumulating in my heart. Our lips met in a tender kiss. It was as pure as a snowflake, but held a certain warmth. Beyond the window, the white snow continued to fall in silence. I had always wanted to make things easier for those working at the company, so I kept building systems. Charlotte broke out of her shell and moved forward, for the sake of her sister and the company. James, though his path was mistaken, fought desperately for Heather, for someone else. Those feelings, given for the sake of another, will always reach their intended heart. Even if the road is winding, sincerity will always lead to a happy future. It's not about titles or status. True strength lies in doing your best for someone, leaning on others for help, and walking together while supporting each other.